Hi, Country Changers. Welcome back to a brand new month, but also a brand new year. January 2024. I feel very old saying that huge number, but it's here on our doorstep. So this month we're excited to feature Wagga Wagga. And joining us on this webinar is Chris and Katrina Rowe. Thank you so much for joining us in the new year.
No worries.
Thanks for having us.
Now, Chris and Katrina, you're from a media background. I'll just quickly explain that, Chris, you are the regional editor of Region Riverina, which is, how would you describe it, a local content news platform?
Yeah, like a digital news platform. So we've only been in the region for a little under 2 years now, but it focuses mainly on positive community stories. So we do your car crashes and we do all that sort of news, but primarily we're about building community and reflecting community back to itself in a positive way. So that's what we do.
Yeah, and super important with a lot of regional news agency newspapers and whatnot closing down. So being able to have that local voice is really important. And Katrina, for yourself, you come from a media background as well. Do you mind sharing a little bit about your history?
Yeah, so I was working in Sydney for the past 20 years or so, working in morning radio, and I've been doing that for, I think I was for the last 15 or so years. And I'm also a children's author, and so I've been writing picture books and publishing those for about 10 years or so. And I really loved my job in Sydney, actually, but I did grow up in the Riverina, at a little town called Darlington Point. And while I didn't ever plan to move back there, we had talked a bit about wanting to raise our kids in the country.
Yeah, nice. And Darlington Point's a beautiful little area, but it is very little compared to Wagga. So what brought you to Wagga?
That's one of the challenges, as you say. Like, I'm also from a small country town. I'm from Burke in northwest New South Wales, but I haven't lived there for about 25 years. And we've been in Sydney working in media. Katrina's in radio. I was in television. And there's not many jobs in those fields in the regions. If you work in that space, you've really got to be in Sydney or Melbourne. And so it was a real challenge for us. And I think we kind of got stuck in Sydney, and we wanted that country lifestyle, but we weren't able to get out. And then I think during the pandemic, it kind of focused a lot of people's minds on what they wanted their life to look like, because they certainly didn't want it to look like what it did in 2020 and 21. And for us, we had Katrina's parents were elderly. They'd retired to Wagga. So we had that connection here already. And we had young kids, and we had a teenager who was having all sorts of troubles at the time. And she just wanted to get out of Sydney and start over. So that was a big push factor for us. And we'd always talked about that idea of push and pull factors. Every time we'd go on holidays, we'd come back going, we've got to leave Sydney. We've got to get out to the bush.
But we didn't know where to go. Like, honestly, we looked at a whole bunch of places, and Wagga sort of only came to our attention after my mum and dad retired here. But also I was, we'd been in Sydney 20 years, so I was pretty picky about some of the things that we wanted. We wanted, for example, one of my daughters plays the violin, and so I didn't want that to suffer. I wanted to know that there would be a good violin teacher, and we have a conservatorium of music here in Wagga Wagga. I wanted to be on a river because I grew up on a river, and so did Chris, and I wanted another body of water. So there were sort of things we wanted, and really important to us was a creative community. And so being in a town that had a vibrant arts community was another thing that we were looking for. As well as a university and things like that, possible things that bring, I guess, interesting people to town. So, Wagga just kind of ticked all the boxes, and I loved Wagga Beach as well. I just
Yes, Wagga has a beach. It's a real beach.
Seriously, because I grew up on a river town and with a river beach, and I don't know, I love the way. One of the real deal breakers for me was the way that the river space had been developed with the parkland, and the way that it's used in the Aboriginal language as well, the local Wiradjuri language, and there's walks. And I love that it's a really beautiful space that is really well accessed by the community.
I should probably clarify very quickly for anyone who is not familiar with Wagga. It is not a ocean beach, obviously. It's a beautiful, I was going to try and share my screen just quickly. I've just brought up some Google images so people can get a good feel, but it's a really family friendly area. And there's been a nice sort of park. There we go, Riverside. Park, and lots of amenities that have been built up over the recent well, I guess that's probably only 2 years old, if that. It's super brand new. So
Yeah, 12 months ago.
Open since we moved here, but we could see all that work in progress and could imagine what a beautiful space it was going to be.
There's a great big amphitheatre they've built down there as well. It's like a mini version of the Domain in Sydney, and they used it for the first time just recently with Christmas with the Conservatorium.
Yeah.
And they had maybe 2,000 or 3,000 people down there, they reckon. So it was amazing, like just beautiful, all sitting out there on the lawn with live music. And yeah, it's great.
So I think, you know, what was important to me as well is in Sydney, I used to go to a lot of theatre, and that was sort of part of my job working on the radio. And so, you know, seeing that the Civic Theatre here had a great season of shows, there was Bell Shakespeare, there was Shake and Stir Theatre from Brisbane, you know, having access to really quality theatre and shows was another thing that was a bit of a draw card to me.
Yeah, and the Conservatorium of Music is quite well regarded from, I'm not a muso, but from all of my sort of dealings with the region and people who've worked at the Conservatorium, it's got great talent coming out of there, and they invest in it. Obviously, I've just brought up a map of the Wagga area as well. You're still, you know, it's 2.5, 3 hours on a bad run to Canberra, and then 5.5, depending where you're going, to Sydney and at what time. And then 4.5, 5 to Melbourne. So you're sort of on the halfway point on this stretch to Sydney and Melbourne that you could easily drive, but there's also an airport that flies to your capitals, Brisbane, and a range of other regionals, but all out of Albury. You've also got Bonza flying out of there that does regional to regional. So you've got a really great ability to tap into the rest of Australia if you do bring your job with you. But it was interesting to talk to you offline just before this. Tell me a little bit about, I guess, how you approached your job search moving from Sydney, having, you know, very strong media backgrounds. What was your experience, and what would you recommend to others who might be looking to, I don't know, bring a very specific skill to region?
It is hard when you work in a specialised area to find the right gig. And as part of it, I'd made the step just before we moved, or about 1.5 years before we moved, to take a government role. So I worked for the Ministry of Health during the pandemic, was producing all their in-house videos.
He did the Gladys o'clock every day at 11, that little press conference.
Gladys was very punctual every day.
Yeah.
So that was what I did during the pandemic, but that was with the idea of getting a government job, because I thought the best possibility for me with a media background was probably to work in a government role. I didn't really enjoy it. And so we just started looking around. Katrina had a job interview down here that she didn't end up getting with an arts organisation, but I thought, gosh, I better apply for something. And then I did get the job that I applied for, which was with Region Riverina. And I just applied for a job as a journalist, just a sort of a basic job. But because of my resume, and I'd been an executive producer at SBS and National Indigenous Television before I came out. And so they reached out and said, actually, we're looking for an editor, and people with your experience don't come along that often. So I was able to sort of slot into that role. And I've never worked in print or digital before. I'm a TV producer, but I found, you know, the skills transferable. And so it's a different role, but I'm enjoying it. I just love the local storytelling as well. It was harder, though, for Katrina, following in my wake, so to speak.
Well, so, yeah, I'd been working in radio for a long time, radio and media production, I guess, for about 25 years. And I was open to a change. So my other interest is books. So I am a children's author. But I also had a book review podcast as part of my radio role. So I had kind of thought about maybe libraries as an option, although I didn't really know what was involved. Anyway,
website, right, Katrina?
Yeah, it did take me a while to find a job. I was being pretty fussy, I guess. Like, I did really want to build on the skill set that I have. I wasn't sort of at the point where I was ready to take an old job kind of thing. And then after about 9 months, I landed a full-time role at Riverina Regional Library. I just published an audiobook, as you can see there. I published that this year. And I've got another book coming out. I've just signed a contract for another picture book, which will come out. I'm not sure if it'll be next year or the year after. That's up to the publisher. But yeah, one of the things I was really hoping to achieve by moving was to sort of live a more creative life. So hopefully, I haven't found the pace to be that much slower, to be honest, in Wagga. But
3 children.
We have 3 kids, and yeah, they have some additional needs as well. But what I have found is that well, it's much easier to get around. So, like, parking and everywhere is sort of 10 minutes from everywhere else. So there's less rushing around. You're not dealing with traffic and that kind of thing.
Even getting in and out of the city, if you're going on a trip, like to leave Sydney, you sit in traffic for a couple of hours before you even leave the city. But you do just jump in the car and go here, and that is nice.
That is nice when you want to go away. But no, what I was more interested in is just that you can live a more modest lifestyle and still have a great life. So what that means is that I'm hoping that one day, that I will have more time to write, because your expenses are way down. Like in Sydney, I was paying, I think, 140 or so a week just on tolls to get to and from work. Parking was really expensive. I was driving 40 minutes there and back every day to get to my job. So I think you do just have more time. And when you, like, I know when I take my kids to soccer training, or, when I'm taking them to their music lessons or whatever, I just go for a nice relaxing walk around town and just chill. Yeah, it's just more chill. And the other thing that I really love, this is really noticeable, people are so much more friendly. So I couldn't believe it. Like, in the first few weeks, you walk into a shop and you're trying a dress on, and you'll end up just totally having a conversation with the person next to you about, oh, what are you, you're going to a wedding? Oh, that looks gorgeous. And then suddenly you're having this chat with someone. People were just way more friendly, like unbelievably so, where people will just chat to you. So it's just a lot quicker to kind of get to know people.
I'd say too that there is a balance to the economics of it, though. Like, it was very expensive to move. Moving was expensive. Finding a rental was expensive, because there is a housing supply issue in regional areas. So we kind of had to take what we could. So our rent, while our household income had dropped to probably a third, because we were on one salary and being paid less than we were in Sydney, our rent wasn't that much less when we moved. So that was a bit of a shock when we first arrived. We were paying a lot. However, we would never have bought a house in Sydney at 3.5 million compared to what we've been able to buy here for under 800.
Yeah, like basically we've bought a house that is almost identical to the house we rented in Sydney. So we used to pay, I think, $720 a week rent, and our mortgage is now a little bit more than half of that, so still way less, and it's our home. So yeah, and it's almost exactly the same house, and we live right near the lake, so we can walk around the lake, and it's I think long term we're going to be. It was
a pretty tight transition period, though, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yes, it was hard until I got a job. Yeah.
Look, I think it's really good to be candid and be honest about the highs and the lows. And I always encourage people who come on to be honest, because we do want to provide practical advice and prepare people to say, these are the factors that you need to consider. And it might be different in each of the locations. And maybe that's something that people have. It was great to hear that you had a want list. And I always say that I recommend that to people as well. Have your must-haves, and then the nice to haves, and the not so important to you, because that will help you ascertain what community is best for you. Because the region is huge. Riverina and Murray is a big region, and each of those towns and shire councils offer something very different and unique, from landscapes to industry, to even housing. So it is really important to be candid. So thank you for that.
One of the best things is we've been able to get a dog, because now we own our own house. We've been able to buy a dog.
And that's something, you know, that can't be underrated, I guess, for me.
No, it's actually been great for the kids, and our eldest, who has autism, has been really good for her.
Yeah, our kids have been so happy having a dog, and I always said to them, well, when we buy our own house, then we can get a dog. And so that's come true. Yeah.
Nice. So Chris, I mean, you've got a great opportunity working for the platform Region Riverina to, I guess, get some insights around what is happening in the region. What were some of the surprising factors for you? I guess that was nearly a baptism of fire, of learning about the region very quickly. What are some of those standout, I'm going to put you on the spot, what were some of those standout points for you to learn about Wagga and the surrounding Riverina area?
I like to say I'm professionally curious. That's what I do, and I do really love getting around and talking to people. And I think I have been very blessed in this role that I met a lot of people very quickly, and you're meeting a lot of really inspirational people, which is really positive as well. You're meeting people who are doing interesting things in the community, and so you can get a very positive aspect. You're seeing the bad stuff as well, but you're able to get a good perspective on the community. I was surprised most, I would say, by the plans to expand Wagga. So the 100,000 plan, which I think is being delayed at the moment, mainly because of housing supply issues. But the plan is to get the population up above 100,000, because once you pass about 90,000, a community really starts to accelerate, as we've seen in places like Toowoomba in Queensland. So that's what they're aiming for. And as part of that, they've got this special activation precinct on the outskirts of town. They're looking to bring manufacturing and industry to this area. And there's all these government incentives and inland rails coming through, and all these sort of mega projects that we're on the intersection of, has been somewhat surprising and exciting as well.
Something that I have enjoyed, because I work for Riverina Regional Library, and that's the library service for all the villages and towns around Wagga. So from one end of the Riverina to the other, is that there are so many lovely townships and villages sort of within a sort of, I suppose, a 2-hour radius. And one of the things I love about my job is I get to work with all those little towns. And because I'm from a small town, I really enjoy that. And it is amazing how much is going on in all these places, you know, not just great tourist attractions, but festivals and events. And
well, for me as an aspiring artist in Sydney, for example, in what I sort of got back on the paintbrushes about 10 years ago, and in that time I've probably exhibited 3-4 times at the most,
just in joint exhibitions,
just in exhibitions and things around Sydney. Very hard to show your work, but since being in Wagga for less than 2 years now, I've been in about 6 shows. I've had a solo exhibition. I've got 2 coming up next year. So that idea of living a more creative life has been great.
And I've got 2 readings of my work as well. I've got an opportunity with Baranga Writers Centre to share my work at the Curious Rabbit, and also at the Amber, which is an art space we have here. So, you know, we've both found opportunities for our creative work as well.
Yeah, the art scene in Wagga is huge. I was just going to Google quickly the Curious Rabbit, because that's a really great contemporary art space, which I can quickly show people. And this is one thing that does, I think, surprise people, because they think they're going to miss out on arts and culture and all of those sorts of connection points, you know, around those aspects that they might be used to going to in Melbourne and Sydney. But it's just, you've got so many amazing international creatives that come and base themselves in region. So that also means, and you've got these little centres like this, where people like yourselves get this opportunity and a platform that they would never have gotten. I mean, no offense, but I'm guessing you may not have into the, you know, Sydney Museum, for example, where you've got that opportunity to really showcase and connect with other creatives and collaborate. I see a lot of really awesome collaborations that come out of Wagga in the region as well. So that's really
there is a really positive community is the word for it. In the arts, Vicky at the Curious Rabbit has done an amazing job of building community. That's her whole ethos for that place. She sold one of my paintings there last week, which was fantastic. And she does live music. She sort of reaches out to some of the smaller, more marginalized community. The local queer communities found a home there, disability groups, Aboriginal elder groups, artists. It's really cool little space, and she kind of helps connect everybody up.
Yeah, sure. So we might, what I was going to say, what would your top tips, Katrina, be for someone who's considering a country change?
Well, I think in terms of the workforce, I would say just do a bit of an audit of your skills, like before you move, and be prepared that, you might have to take a sidestep or, a pivot, as they say. But, I think, you should be able to find work that uses your skills and builds on it. And that also, people are very generous with their time. So I would, contact people ahead of your move and just let them know who you are, and, ask for a coffee or something like that if you want to sort of form professional connections. And then with the other thing that was, because it did take me some time to get a job, is I did try to volunteer where I could. So I was on a committee that helped organise a Christmas carols event, which was pretty funny because I was new to town, didn't know anyone, but I did the publicity for this event. We had 3,000 people come to our carols event. I actually emceed the event as well. And so that was a great way for me to just find some purpose and connection while I was waiting to, find a job. I actually think it's really smart if you are a family with children like we were, actually to not have both, if you happen to have a partner, to have both working instantly, because there's a lot of settling in you have to do with the children,
finding doctors,
with schools and doctors, and getting stuff organized, finding their football team and all that stuff. So yeah, I think that's probably a good way to go if you can manage it.
That's a really great piece of advice. Actually, it makes a lot of sense, rather than putting that extra pressure on the family to, if you do have that luxury of being able to have one parent working and the other one, as you say, sort of finding your feet.
Move her in for a month or so, yeah.
It wouldn't have been our choice, but Katrina was working full time while she wasn't working.
Oh yeah, 100%. And how about you, Chris? What are your top tips?
Just be really open-minded, like smaller community, there are real advantages, there are some disadvantages, but just take everything in your stride and be friendly and open to meeting people.
I think we kind of came with like, well, we'll give it 3 years and see how it goes, and it's kind of already been almost 2 years. And I think we sort of have a long-term view of things. Like, you won't make your best friends instantly, but if you kind of have a go at things and get involved where you can, then I now can go to something in Wagga, having been here for 18 months, and be guaranteed to find people I know. Like, if I just turn up to something that's on Botanic Gardens or the art gallery, I will find familiar faces, even though we haven't been here that long.
We had a funny moment. We'd only been here for about maybe 8 months at that stage. It was during the floods. We had about 5 floods in a row. There's these waves of floods, didn't hit the town, but down on the beach. We had some friends out from Sydney, and we took them down to have a look at the floodwaters, and we're up on the levee bank, and a local character named Larry comes wandering along. Everyone in Wagga knows Larry. He's a local homeless guy and very loud on the street and chats with people all the time. So I said hello to Larry. We had a bit of a chat, and then another couple walks past, and I stopped and had a quick chat with them. And that was the local mayor. Being a journalist, obviously, I meet all the councillors and that sort of thing. And I mentioned that to our friend. I said, "Oh, that's Dallas is the mayor." And he said, "Right, so you've been in town for a few months and you're on a first name basis with the homeless guy and the mayor." And that's life in a country town, right?
Well, you're all in together a bit more, and if you meet someone at something, you'll see them again. So that's what I like. If you go to something and you meet someone, you will crash into that person the next time you go to the theatre, or you go to an art gallery, or you're at soccer with the kids. Yeah, so
yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one thing that you do not really experience in bigger cities like Sydney, which, some people might.
We know those guys. There you go.
Oh, do you really?
Oh, that's Dane Simpson, the comedian.
Oh, funny. Oh, so what I was bringing people to this page for, so if they head to thecountrychange.com.au, you will find up the top the section that breaks down all the little towns, and under plan a visit, and under the Wagga page, you'll find some great videos and resources, some information around, population, transport, but also some contact information, as well as links to some of those really important services like health and medical education, et cetera. And as Katrina pointed out, the council, RDA Riverina, who runs the Country Change initiative, Committee for Wagga, they're all very, very active and really friendly. So if you do want, I guess, that inside information around what are the skills needed, what are the businesses needed, where are the opportunities, reach out to these organizations, because they will have a chat with you and they will give you that guidance to be able to make smart choices. And make that.
Wagga actually do a welcome event for newcomers. They do four a year, and that's a really great way to meet people and just hear a bit more about Wagga, and the local councillors and some local business leaders come along and just chat to people, and that is a really good way to make a connection. Actually, it's such a good event that they do.
Yeah, absolutely. We share those events on the Country Change Facebook page, so also follow our page and find out a little bit more about those. So
and you can read Region Katrina too if you want to learn what's going on in the area. Meet a few local characters. Great website. Check it out.
Yeah, give you a bit of a feel for the region and the town and the city. So thank you so much to you both. It was really great to hear really practical tips and tools, I guess, for people to consider. So thank you so much for your time, and I hope 2024 is an awesome one for you both.
No worries. Thank you.
You.